down there is the west side yard of the Long Island Railroad. And over here is the High Line. We're going to explore the High Line today for episode 8 of New York's Forgotten Railways. The origin of the High Line can be traced back to 1847, when New York Central opened a freight spur on Manhattan's west side along 10th and 11th Avenue to connect the meatpacking district. The rail line ran on street level, and men were hired to ride horses and wave flags in front of the train to warn pedestrians. Despite that, so many accidents occurred here that the corridor was known as Death Avenue. In 1929, the city started the West Side Improvement Project, which would elevate the line and eliminate 105 grade crossings. The elevated line originated in St. John's Terminal at Spring Street and ran north to 35th Street along Washington Street and 10th Avenue. Trains started running on the line in 1933. However, by the 1950s, the increase in interstate trucking led to a decline of the freight line. St. John's Terminal closed in 1960. The southern section of the line was abandoned and demolished in the following decades. The section north of Gansevoort Street remained but was in very low use. By the early 1980s, the northern section was also closed. While property owners wanted the elevated line demolished, many efforts were made to revitalize it. In 1988, the MTA proposed a plan to run a light rail line along the elevated line, but that went nowhere. In 1999, the non-profit organization Friends of the High Line proposed transforming the abandoned line into a linear park. After years of advocacy, construction started on the High Line in 2006. The first section opened in 2009, followed by 2 more sections in 2011 and 2014. Our exploration starts on the northern end of the High Line, where it loops around West Side Yard. Here is a great location for rail fans that want to observe train movements in the yard. But I am not here for that, so I continued forward. Along the walk path, you can see old railroad tracks covered by plants. I am not sure, but these tracks should be the original tracks that freight trains once ran on. Continuing forward, we reach the newly constructed High Line Moynihan Train Hall Connector, a spur that opened in 2023 running along 30th Street and Dyer Avenue. Despite its name, the spur doesn't really give you access to Moynihan Train Hall directly. Instead, you have to walk for a while after exiting the spur before you reach the entrance of the train hall. After the spur, I continued along the main line, but there wasn't anything too interesting here. Just a path with plants and rail tracks on the side. Though further down the line, there is a section where the trees and plants have grown tall enough to create a mini forest. The fun begins when you reach 17th Street, where the High Line crosses over 10th Avenue, and the observation deck is built for you to get a nice view of it. Starting here, the High Line moves to the east side of 10th Avenue. Just 1 block south, we reach what is now known as the Northern Spur Preserve. This mini rail spur was used to connect the Merchant Refrigerating Company building. Interestingly, the building itself was built before the High Line and was retrofitted to accept trains inside the building. From street level, you can still see the structure of the rail spur connected to the building, though the berth that accepted trains has been covered up. Right next to the rail spur is the Chelsea Market Passage. This building was originally known as the Nabisco Building, a factory for cookies and crackers. The High Line was built directly through the building, allowing cookies to be loaded onto trains directly inside. Today, this level of the building where trains once ran through is filled with vendors and shops. On street level, the building hosts the bustling Chelsea Market itself. On the south side of Chelsea Market Passage, there is this area with a row of lounges. Looks like a pretty good place to hang out with friends and relax. Continuing south, it's not long until we reach the 14th Street Passage. This building was a cold storage facility for the Kadahi Packing Company, a meat packing company. Just like the Nabisco building, trains ran directly through the building, allowing for loading and unloading directly inside. The building is now used for art exhibition and public events, though it seems like there was some renovation during my visit. Leaving the Kadahi building, the Highline passes through another building, the Standard Highline Hotel. Unlike the other buildings the Highline passes, this building was finished in 2009, so the building was built on top of the Highline instead of the Highline being built through it. After passing the hotel building, it's not far until we reach the end of the Highline Park, but this isn't really the end of the line. Well, the park ends here. The freight line itself used to continue south to the St. John's Freight Terminal. The line has been demolished from this point south, though there are some remnants if you know where to look. Right across Gansevoort Street from the end point of the park is this building that looks like a typical building, but if you look closely, you will notice a section of gray wall. This gray section marks where the elevated line would have gone through. 7 of the 9 buildings in this block were once used by the Manhattan Refrigerating Company. The building was responsible for producing cold air that would be piped around the area, allowing the storage of meat. Today, these buildings have become the West Coast apartments, including residential and commercial spaces. After this building, there is nothing interesting for a few blocks until Bethune Street, where you come across the West Beth Artist Housing. On this building, we can see 2 cutoffs on the wall, indicating that this is another building the freight line ran through. The building was originally the Bell Telephone Laboratories. The building was where significant new technologies were developed, including phonograph records, talking, movies, television, and radar. If you walk to the other end of the building, you will be able to see the track bed still sitting on the building. I have found photos of this same location when trains were still running. By the way, the building was built before the High Line and was converted for trains to run through. The buildings south of this point are mostly built after the freight line was demolished, including the West Village apartments. But there is one exception. The building of the St. John's Freight Terminal is still standing. Well, mostly. For the sake of time, I decided to take a look at it on Google Street View. The St. John's Terminal was built in 1934. The terminal could accommodate 227 train cars. It had 3 floors, measuring 2,500 square feet each, the largest in New York City at the time of their construction. The terminal was between Clarkson Street to the north, Spring Street to the south, West Street to the west, and Washington Street to the east. The freight terminal was closed in 1960. The building was purchased by Eugene M. Grant and Lionel Billman, who converted the building into a warehouse and office building. The building was later known as St. John's Center. In 2018, Google started the redevelopment of the building. The structure over Houston Street and the terminal north of Houston Street were demolished. By 2021, the St. John's Terminal building was purchased by Google outright. The redevelopment has been completed and opened in February 2024. The redevelopment added 9 stories to the original freight terminal building and is now Google's North America headquarters for global business organization. From Houston Street, you can see the renovated building with rail beds visible. Some sources say that these are the original rail beds, so it is pretty cool. I didn't learn about the building's current status until post-filming. I should have gone there in person during that trip. Anyways, this is the true end of the line for the elevated freight railroad itself, which marks the end of the exploration. So, what are my thoughts of the High Line? Well, it's a pretty decent linear park. Remember that this is in Manhattan, what people like to call concrete jungle, so it's really nice to have a park like this to escape the fast pace of the city and relax. It's also somewhat useful if you're traveling on foot in certain parts of Manhattan's west side. However, the High Line does have its flaws, such as a relatively narrow walk path and a lack of bike lanes. I know the park wanted to preserve some of the nature that have grown, but it would be really nice if the walk path is slightly wider and a bike path existed. If so, it may be useful for bike commuters along the corridor. Another thing to point out is how the High Line is used as a model for Queensway, a proposed park along the abandoned Rockaway Beach branch. Although I like the High Line, I do not support the Queensway. Instead, I support the Queens Link. Remember, the Queens Link also includes a park with walking and biking lanes. So the Queens Link is a better version of the High Line with a transit line right next to it. If you want to learn more about what is and why I support Queens Link, you can check out this video. Anyways, this also marks the end of this video. What are your thoughts on the High Line? Which abandoned railroad line in New York do you want me to explore next? Share it in the comments below. If you want to see my other abandoned railroad explorations in New York, check out this playlist. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in that playlist.